Our service is going to begin. Marguerite O'Connor is the celebrant. Please make sure your phones are turned down.
Years old, you're safe in the harbor at the rock. And some men are sailors, but most are just dreamers, and passed by the anchor, they hold in their mind. With their hearts know they'll never sail over the ocean in search for a treasure they're afraid they won't find. So in sheltered harbors they cling to their anchors, bend down the waters and shut out the sea. And wait for the sailors to return with their treasure that will find the dollars and fire off the breeze. To every sailor comes time to drop anchor, all in the sails and make a life spouse. You deep water river, your journey is over, safe in the harbor at the rock. And some men are schemers who laugh at the dreamers, take the gold from the sailors and turn it to dross. They're men in a prison, they're men without vision, whose only horizon is profit and loss. So it's dark clouds come crossing across your blue ocean, hold fast to your dreaming for all that you're worth. For as long as there are sailors, there will always be dreamers, bringing back their bright treasure from the corners of the world. To every sailor comes time to drop anchor, all in the sails and make the lights spouse. You deep water dreamer, your journey is over, you're safe in the harbor at the rock.
it is my sad honor to welcome you as we come together to mourn the loss and celebrate the life of John Colgan. We are also here to honor and support those who loved and cared for him. Each of you comes with your own memories of John. Everyone has his or her own relationship, unique experiences, and stories to tell. Thus, no two people here will grieve the same way. The word eulogy comes from a word meaning to bless or to praise. Today we pay tribute to John. We acknowledge his unique life, and we affirm the significance of that life for all of you who shared in it. A reading from M. Maureen Killeran. We come together from the diversity of our grieving, together in the warmth of this community, giving stubborn witness to our belief that in times of sadness, there is room for laughter. In times of darkness, there always will be light. May we hold fast to the conviction that what we do with our lives matters, and that a caring world is possible after all. It has been said that when through one man, a little more love and goodness, a little more light and truth come into the world, then that man's life has had meaning. John Colgan was born on the 7th October 1958 and passed away unexpectedly on 12th May 2022. John was the second eldest of 7 children born to Edward and Teresa Colgan, nee McGuire. Loving brother of David, Rosemary, Pádraig, Paul, Anne, and Kevin. Brother-in-law of Peter and sisters-in-law Mary and Marie. Sadly missed by his nieces, nephews, cousins, and wide circle of friends in the Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois, and Westmeath, Ireland. John lived his early life in the greater Mullingar area in a small townland called the Downs. After graduating from secondary school, John worked through the ranks in the Customs Division of the Revenue Commissioners in Ireland for 7 years. John had the traveling spirit within him and was intrigued with life in foreign lands, particularly in the United States, to which many of his ancestors had emigrated, and which appeared to offer opportunities beyond belief, opportunities that could never be replicated in the sedentary environment of the Downs. John felt at home here in the United States, where his quirky sense of humor, his art of spinning good yarn, and his emotional serenading various genres of music, as well as playing the guitar, endeared him to all peoples here in America. Hospitality was to provide John with meaningful terms of employment, and it was not uncommon for customers to stay in one of his emporiums longer than they had intended to, in the hope that after John's shift and weighed down with generous tips, he would perform a song or two from his impressive repertoire. Those were great nights that couldn't be planned, but when they did happen, they left a wonderful afterglow. John worked as a bartender in the Dubliner, Four Provinces, Kitty O'Shea's, Fado, the Celtic Crossing for 16 years, Johnny O'Hagan's the ambassador 4 seasons and was working in the embassy till time of death. John kept an eye on local GAA sports activity and welcomed up-to-date reports on how his nephews were performing at the various levels. John enjoyed the all-football series in both football and hurling, and enjoyed when Ireland's rugby team were performing well. John never held down a university degree, but he graduated from the School of Life with first-class honors. This was due to his observations of people, his unyielding thirst to absorb knowledge that would enable him to converse confidently and liberally on topics that even had the admiration of his debating adversaries. John was a man of principle, honor, loyalty, decency, as well as generosity of spirit. And while such a combination of these traits are rare to find in many a person, John had them in abundance. Add in a spoonful of eccentricity, and you've got the complete package of what every human person should aspire to be. John never, ever forgot his roots or his upbringing. He never forgot the generous assistance given to him when he landed on these shores over 35 years ago. And as time passed, he in turn provided that same level of assistance to those that landed on his doorstep. He always maintained that one should always look out for one's own. John had a huge network of friends. Indeed, if one browses the various social media platforms and online guestbook, when one cannot be but impressed at the outpouring of love and affection that global communities, including Washington, Chicago, and his native Westmeath in Ireland, had for John. This, in turn, has provided great comfort for all of John's siblings as they attempt to come to terms with the enormity of John's passing. One of John's greatest joys was when his parents, Ned and Teresa, visited him in Washington in their latter years. While they were apprehensive about his well-being at the early stages of his new life in America, they were equally proud of him as they witnessed at first hand how well he adapted to cultural change, allowing his bubbly personality to overcome the many challenges he faced before finding his rightful level that made him happy. It was John's way of saying thank you to his parents. I now invite Paul O'Reilly, a close friend who has known John as a good pal since 1996 and has worked with John the last 7 years. Paul will share his memories. Paul?
I won't be long. You know, John hated long speeches, and so I'll just say a few words. You know how he was. As you all know, John was a true friend and a great pal to us all. Of course, he had many favourite pastimes. He loved the old smokes, but put them aside a few years ago as they were catching up on him. And he loved a few pints. But as he would say himself, he went a bit nuts on it. And so he put that aside also and switched over to the Heineken and Guinness 00, which he loved up until a few weeks ago when he passed. And a great man for the cuppa too. John loved the old Barry's tea. Of course, the gold blend, of course, don't forget that. And he'd be on the boil all the time for the cuppa. And as for the GAA, every Saturday and Sunday evening, John would come in with the latest scores, give us the comments and keep us up to date on what was going on. And on the ladies' front, he retired that plan too. Yeah. Early enough, and he often recommended to us single lads to follow suit. We'll be following you, John. And then, of course, his favourite thing of all, the stock market. You know, stock the lights. That man loved the phone, like we all do, but we looking for WhatsApp, texts, and voicemails and calls, etc. John, not a chance. Red or green were the two colours he'd look for. The percentage points, positive or negative. And then you'd see him come back with that finger and he'd come back and he'd look. If he was happy, stocks were up. If there was woe on his face, you know they were on the way down. And of course, one thing for sure, his wonderful voice. It was, and thousands he pleased with that voice. And I'm sure he's up there now singing a version of Raglan Road with Luke Kelly and of course Ronnie Drew. Speaking of up there, Johnny was getting ready for this Saturday, a big Liverpool fan that he was. He'd be looking down on the Reds, bringing home the trophy to Anfield, no doubt. And then of course, the one thing I can't forget, Johnny's sweet tooth. Man, he loved the chocolate and scones, unbelievable. Right until the end he did. When I took over his shift last Tuesday evening, kitchen closed about 9 o'clock. And about 11 o'clock I was starving, so I dropped down to the cooler where we have the scones and a bit of jam and butter. Lo and behold, they were gone. You don't need to ask who robbed them before me, but anyways. That's the way it was. To see you all here, and many, many more across the pond, and in this country and around the world, we've all shed a tear for John, and that tells you the measure of the man. He had time for everyone, and a lovely gentleman John was. We will all miss you, John, but we'll never forget you. Thank you for sharing a part of your life with us all.
Thank you, Paul. Good job. And now another of John's songs, Nancy Stain.
In my boat, the wind gently blows and fills my sail. Your sweet scented breath is everywhere. Daylight peeping through the curtain of the passing, nighttime is your smile, and the sun in the sky is your light. Come back to me, my Nancy, linger with me for a little while. Since you've left these shores, I've known no peace nor joy. No matter where I wander, I'm still haunted by your name. The portrait of your beauty is the same. Standing by the ocean, wondering where you're gone, if you'll return again. Oh, where is the ring I gave the Nancy Spain? On the day in the spring, when snows start to melt and streams to flow, with the birds I'll sing this song. Then in the while I'll wander down by Colgan Road where wanderers go, and I hope that lovely Nancy will return. No matter
I share the following poem as we try to navigate and cope with our loss of John. Life is but a stopping place, a pause in what's to be, a resting place along the road to sweet eternity. We all have different journeys, different paths along the way. We all were meant to learn some things, but never meant to stay. Our destination is a place far greater than we know. For some, the journey's quicker. For some, the journey's slow. And when the trek comes to an end, the mystery finally shown, we'll find an everlasting peace, the cosmic plan made known. Let us pause now to be still, to breathe in each moment of life with a sense of gratitude for its gifts of family, friends, music, work, and love. We pause to affirm the cycles of life and death, for we know that we are all part of an endless and mysterious cycle of existence. What makes this funeral tribute sacred is the spirit of love and support that you bring to celebrate John's life and to share your compassion with his bereaved family and friends. We never get over the death of a loved one, but we do learn to reconcile the loss. We live on in the lives of those we imprint. We live on in the lives of those who love us. It has been said that no one is dead until they are forgotten. The relationships and the stories that John's life created will keep his memory alive. May your memories of John be a source of comfort, tears, laughter, and inspiration. We feel sorrow because John is gone, but we rejoice because he lived, he loved, and he was loved. Pericles said, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others." I would like to share a reading entitled "We Remember You" by Sylvan Canons and Jack Weimer. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, in the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, in the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the blueness of the skies and with warmth of summer, in the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, in all seasons, we remember you, John. We shall remember the times of joy. We shall remember the times of pain. We shall remember those quiet times of peace. And we shall remember the grief of parting. In all emotions, we remember you, John. For the examples lived among us, for the lessons taught and learned, for the concern felt about us, for the love shared with us. For all reasons, we remember you, John. John, so long as we live, you too shall live in that you are a part of all who have known you. Alan Cohen said, "Appreciation is the highest form of prayer, for it acknowledges the presence of good wherever you shine the light of your thankful thoughts." I welcome John's brother-in-law, Potter Colgan, to share a few words on behalf of the family. Potter?
The family have asked me to speak on their behalf a few words of appreciation for all the assistance they have received upon hearing the tragic and unexpected passing of John. When the phone rang and was answered at 1:42 a.m. last Friday week, back in Ireland, to hear the words that John's life had expired, the resulting impact has been and continues to be difficult to comprehend. To think that John is no longer with us is still beyond belief, but it should make each and every one of us reflect on the frailty of life. It seems like only yesterday that life for John was carefree and worry-free, with dreams waiting to be pursued and fulfilled. As Marguerite alluded to, John spent 7 years in the Irish Customs Service, and it was with great consternation to John's parents that he decided to resign from Customs to find his true destiny in this world. In those days of rampant unemployment in Ireland, surrendering a most cherished and respected job that bore the imprint of every mother's wish of being permanent and pensionable was difficult to fathom. But that was John, bold and brave, and he never regretted it. As he'd often say, in the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take. John loved America, and it is our considered belief that America loved John. Working in the hospitality sector allowed John to share and develop a rascally sense of humour, and that, along with his booming laugh, endeared him to people of all nations. Departing Ireland's shores with a pleasant singing voice and the guitar, it is well documented how often John entertained his customers late into the night and early morning, whether it was the bars in Washington, like the Dubliner and the Four Provinces, or here in Chicago at the Celtic and up to very recently, the Embassy. Though John spent 35 years in America, he never forgot his roots, his origins, or where he came from. He identified himself with W.B. Yeats's poem, I Am of Ireland, and to this end, John truly was. In John's apartment, there lies a few sods of Irish turf that he brought from the bog near his home back in Westmeath to the United States, so that in the cold winter of Chicago, he was able to propel himself back in time to his youth and remember the warmth and scent that only a turf fire can provide. John always had a sense of family and eagerly looked forward to visits back home, sitting at the table, eating hearty Irish fare, engaging in animated conversation, and recounting stories of his formative years with his siblings, all was made for a hearty night's entertainment. Add in the customary few songs, and you had a night of joviality that you never wanted to end. John's upbringing was typical of rural Ireland, where respecting your elders was paramount, and it took for John to emigrate to realise how wise his parents were to instil such standards. To this end, John was chuffed, thrilled and excited when both of them agreed to visit him in their latter years, and they stayed here for 3 weeks. John's mother Teresa found the heat draining and overpowering, and was more economic in expending her energy. Where John's father Ned, he embraced the magnitude and never-ending bewilderment that the United States offers. His idea of cooling down from the heat was to drop in to many a bar and exchange pleasantries with his new best friend, Mr. Jack Daniels. Mind you, he never got his address to thank him for protecting him from the excessive heat. That visit by Ned and Teresa to the US, which they thoroughly enjoyed, meant so much to John, as it was his way of expressing his gratitude for all that they did so selflessly for him. John continued this trait of selflessness by providing assistance to many, many people who arrived on these shores during times of hardship, and indeed many tributes have been received from people who have grown up and had children of their own and who now consider America their primary place of residence. John loved his birthday, and more importantly, he loved the annual package he received from home, containing the magic treat of the Barry's tea, the Cadbury's purple snack biscuits, and in particular, Jacob's chocolate Kimberley, a must-have treat in any Irish home, particularly around the Christmas time. How John drooled in grateful appreciation when he received those parcels from home, knowing he was going to experience a serious sugar buzz for the following week or two. This past week, we have regaled on John's youth back in Westmeath. We have listened and laughed on hearing stories that had lapsed in our minds from friends and neighbours. This has been a source of great comfort to us as we recalled how impishly mischievous John was during his adolescent years. Indeed, some stories we're just hearing for the very first time. No Instagram, no Snapchat, no Facebook for John to waste time on, but rather a healthy appetite to engage with the great outdoors and making the most of those precious teenage years where curiosity about life begins to form. I'm sure there are many tales of development that are deemed legendary here in Chicago, and the family are eagerly looking forward to being enlightened as we adjourn to the Embassy pub after the service, where you're all most welcome to join us. Suller Creek Nian, but what am Kubla Fukla Ras Goelga, Changa and Tier in a Rugger Bay. Tá the Hail Heart the Yon, Tá Ross Richard God, agus tá the Quid Ibra Dainta. But while lumps of week as a goal as the Huranta, a Kamar, the Kayla, a kind free Kyo, agus Aura, or Yosef Felicicano, the BB King, or Liam Clancy Galoo Kelly. Good day to Slanagon and Kane Arch in a Wilton. John's passion without a shadow of doubt was his music and the appreciation of musicianship across all genres of music. He always played and sung with the same passion as performed by his role models, B.B. King or Luke Kelly. Indeed, when John sang Raglan Road, The Old Triangle, Rocky Road to Dublin, or any of the sea shanties, you could not be but mesmerised by the passion he displayed. Today, this most poignant of services has been peppered with John's lilting voice from his CD, Songs from the Crossing, and it reflects the clarity in which he sung some of his favourite songs. It is a great comfort that we can listen to his voice and watch on YouTube images of him performing those same songs, whether it be in the bars of Chicago or Moriarty's public house in the Downs back home. To you, his American friends, we would like to express our gratitude for taking John to your hearts and accommodating his eccentricities, his eclectic sense of humour, his generosity, his attention to honesty, decency and fair play. Oh, he could be loud and argumentative as well, but we like to think never in a vindictive manner. Today could not have happened without the help and assistance of so many people here in America. To Mark and all his crew here in the Benson Funeral Home, a sincere thanks. To Marguerite and all the preparation for delivering a fitting reflection of John. Again, we say a heartfelt thanks. It was very reassuring that you both responded promptly to all the emails that were sent in conjunction with the service, given the time zone difference, and nothing was ever a burden, particularly over the weekend of John's demise. So for that, we say thank you. There is a saying that goes, judge a man by his actions, not by his words. And if this was ever a case, then this should apply to then, it has to be directed to Paul O'Reilly, John's close friend. It was Paul that informed us to say that he was in hospital. It was Paul who had to compose himself and impart the devastating news of John's passing at 1:42 a.m. that Friday morning. It has been Paul who took control and alleviated so much pressure from the family as we began to come to terms of the new reality. There's a song written by Alma Androzo back in 1945, and it's called If I Can Help Somebody, and it contains the following lyrics. If I can help somebody along life's way, then my living shall not be in vain. And that song must have been dedicated or written for you, particularly Paul. By the way, Paul, we haven't quite forgiven about the fact that Kildare bet Westmeath in the All-Ireland football semi-final not more than 10 days ago. Mark man. But anyway, seriously, Paul, thank you. They're just two little words, but I hope the manner in which they have been conveyed to you will reflect emphatically our deep level of appreciation. And so, John, your guitar is now silent, your booming voice with its infectious laughter is hushed, your shift is now complete, rest easy, sleep peacefully. And in conclusion, I picture John, and what words would he choose to remember himself by? And I'm repeatedly drawn to these words by Lyman Hancock. And you know, I can just imagine him with that grin on his face, wearing one of his many blue shirts and uttering the following. When I come to the end of my journey, and I've travelled my last weary mile, just forget if you can I ever frowned, and remember only the smile. Forget unkind words I've spoken, remember some good I've done. Forget that I ever had heartache, and remember I've had loads of fun. Thank you.
Good job. And so, John, you have left a great impression on those who were lucky enough to meet and know you. You have left us the gift of your voice for us to remember you by, as the CD, Songs from the Crossing, has been played and played in our own personal moments. We imagine you heartily singing Rocky Road to Dublin or lilting softly Song for Ireland. Our closing song is Song for Ireland.
Walking on the day, near tall flowers are fallen, wilderness. Silver wing they fly, they know the call of freedom in their breast. Saw my hand against the sky, near twisted rocks that got down to the sea. Living on your western shore, saw summer sunsets, asked for more. Stood by your Atlantic sea, and I sang a song for Ireland. Walking all the day with true friends who try to make you stay. Telling jokes and you singing songs to pass the night away. Was they going south and round like silver plastic coffee in the sun? Living on your western shore, saw summer sunsets, asked for more. Stood by your Atlantic sea, and I sang a song for Ireland. Thinking of the day in those pubs where fiddlers love to play. Someone touched the bone. He played a reel which seemed so grand and gay. Stood and dingle beach and dance in wild hope. He found the Atlantic glass. Living on your western shore, saw summer sunsets, asked for more.
On behalf of John's family, I would like to thank you all for your many kindnesses, flowers, condolences, tributes online and in person, and your presence here today at the funeral home and virtually. A celebration of John's life will continue at the Embassy Public House, 1435 West Taylor Street in Chicago. All are welcome. Please join us to continue to share stories and remembrances of John. This does conclude services at the funeral home. We invite you to come forward to pay your final respects, starting at the rear of the chapel. Funeral Director Mark standing by there to guide.
Yeah.